What is real success in private practice? Now, I wonder if you've heard, you probably have to if you're following me, that I was at the Independent Podcast Awards last week. So I've been nominated now. I'm just trying to think. I've been to 3 different podcast award ceremonies. On the ones last week, I was nominated 3 times. So I've been nominated at least 5 times, I think, for a podcast award. And do you know what? I haven't won any of the times that I've been nominated. And what's happened is when I wrote to people in my newsletter last week that I'd been nominated and not won, I've actually had some people writing back to commiserate with me the fact that I hadn't won. But you know what? I'm really not bothered one way or the other, because I was just so thrilled to actually be there. And being the overall winner, although it would be nice and it would feed my ego, it's actually not the real reason why I do produce my podcasts. And so I think it's really important that we do have a think about what success means to us, because it's often not what people would imagine. But I think we can get pulled into thinking that success in private practice has to look a particular way. And I don't know if you agree with me, but this is some of the things that people might think to themselves about what is success in private practice. And it might be things like the number of clients, whether or not you're full. Have you got, say, 20 clients coming every week? How much money you're making through your private practice? Are you able to work in your private practice full time? And there's nothing worse than when you're struggling in your private practice, coming into one of the counselling groups on Facebook or speaking to someone that you know, and they tell you that they're really busy, that they've got loads of inquiries. They've had 5 inquiries in the past week. And you think to yourself, well, I haven't had any. Or, they tell you about the total number of clients they've got. And again, you just go away thinking, well, what is it that I'm doing wrong? Because I haven't got that many. And so we can easily measure our success, and we can easily end up comparing ourselves with other people, can't we? And all that does is actually make us feel a little bit miserable. So let's have a think tonight about how we can define the success of private practice. So the first thing I'd like to say in response to those times when we compare ourselves to other people is it's really important not to compare our day 1 with someone else's day 100. And that can come up in several ways. So if you're just starting out in private practice and you look at someone who's got an established private practice and they've been doing it for a while, yeah, they're going to be getting referrals. They're going to probably have worked out what works in terms of their marketing. They probably have got a good idea of how to bring people into their practice. And if you're just starting out, you may not have actually worked that out. But then you might compare yourself to someone else who has started about the same time as you, and you think, well, they're getting more clients than me. What are they doing? But it may not be their day 1 in terms of their marketing. It may be day 100 because they've already got previous experience of running a small business and marketing. So it might be for you, marketing's a completely new concept, but for them, they've done something very similar to this in the past. So try not to compare yourself with other people. You tend to compare your worst bit with their best bits. And have you ever noticed people very rarely boast about their failures? You only see the successes. But you're very painfully aware of your own shortcomings. And so comparing yourself can actually mean you're not really comparing like with like. So try and remember that when you're tempted to compare yourself and you have that real heart sink moment where you look at someone else and think to yourself, oh, I haven't thought of doing that, or I'm not doing that. Instead of thinking that, just think to yourself, well, that's a good idea. How could I use that in my practice? Use these people to inspire you and show you that what's actually possible and ideas that you could use in your own practice. So that's the first thing to think about, is don't compare your day 1 to somebody else's day 100. And the next thing I'd like to encourage you to think about is actually thinking about, what does success look like to you? And one of the things that went down really well when I interviewed Samantha Lee on the Good Enough Counsellors podcast, so that's episode 23, if you want to go back and listen to it, was Samantha talking about what successful private practice is to her. And Sam was saying, you know, when she was bringing up her daughter, she was a single parent. She needed to be on benefits because that meant that she had like a stable amount of money coming in, and she needed that to be able to look after herself and her daughter. And at that point, she only had a couple of private practice clients. But like she said, she still felt that she was being a successful private practitioner because she was building up her knowledge, she was building up her reputation with clients. And for her, that meant she was successful. And I think it's really important that we actually think about, what does success look like to us, rather than what does success look like to anyone else. So, for example, with my podcast, as I say, I got people who commiserated with me for not winning. But actually, I felt I was a winner already just to actually be there at the finals. And that was really, as far as I was concerned, that was winning. So, you know, we all define success in our own way. And I think it's really helpful for us to have a think about, what does success mean to me? So I wonder, what would you include as wins? So, you know, it might be something like that you've worked out what your niche is, for example, or that you're consistently doing some marketing every week. I mean, that is a fantastic win. Or that you started a blog up. Now, you notice when I'm talking about these wins, I'm actually not talking about your client numbers or successes with clients, because those wins are actually based on things that actually you don't have a lot of control over. You can sit with a client week in, week out, and it can be fantastic. And equally, you can sit with another client week in, week out, and it can be a complete no success at all. I was going to say no hope. I'm not quite sure that's the right thing. But, you know, we can easily measure our success based on our outputs, what's actually happening with other people. But that doesn't actually, it's so dependent on external factors that in actual fact, it's not necessarily the most helpful measure of success. And a helpful measure of success could be, you know, was I as interested and engaged with client number 2, who feels like a bit of a no-hoper, as I was with client number 1, where it was very much easier? Did I still turn up and do everything that I could to help that particular person, even if I didn't see any progress? So it's about you and what you put in. It's about your values. It's about how you turn up. And so for me, with the podcast awards, you know, I'm just absolutely thrilled that this week I am bringing out episode 37. And I just think, wow, I have done so well that I'm bringing out an episode every week. And that for me is just such a win, because, you know, it's consistent. I've established a routine. It's getting out there. And that for me is such a fantastic win. And so the actual, whether or not I'm at the podcast awards, I don't know next year if I'll put the Good Enough Counsellors podcast in, whether it would be shortlisted or not. But I know that I'm really happy with the way it's going, because I'm turning up, I'm doing what I love to do. And this week's episode that's coming out this week is all about encouraging you. It's all about helping you to work towards making your practice successful in your eyes. And I just think, for me, that gives me so much joy. And it's all about what I'm doing in being involved in doing it, not the actual external things about who says it's good and who says it isn't good. That is not so important. So in conclusion, what I'd really like you to think about is, how do you define your success in private practice? Don't measure it by what other people are doing it. Measure it by what's important to you and what's happening in your circumstances and your life and what is relevant to you in this moment, not what's relevant to someone else at a different moment. Because like Samantha, you could be a single mum who only has time for a couple of clients a week. But if you are turning up and you're seeing those couple of clients a week, that's a successful private practice. So let's have a think about what real success means to us, rather than basing it on all sorts of external measures that might mean something to someone else, but don't necessarily have to mean anything to you. So I hope that's helped you and encouraged you today. And I'll be back next week. But listen out to the podcast this week, episode 37, Small Steps to Success, all about the Independent Podcast Awards and how I can help you with my learning through that.